Welcome to Autism 30 and Autism Awareness Month. Today we are bringing you a special two-part podcast to celebrate. Please listen, enjoy, and don't forget to join us tomorrow for part 2.
I'm an autism awareness angel, making sure my wings protect the different, the stranger than. I'm an autism awareness angel. It's good, cause I'm cool with the unique behavior. I'm an autism awareness angel. Will you accept me? Cause I accept you. I'm an autism awareness angel, cause a view from the spectrum is a better point of view.
Hi, I'm Tally and welcome back to Autism 30. Today on our podcast, we are speaking with Miss Janet Walmsley. Miss Janet Walmsley currently lives in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and has worked for many years in the field of marketing. Today, she is a professional actor and singer who you may have seen in theater, film, television, and commercials. She is also the mother of a son, Christopher, and a daughter who is Miss Jenny Story. When her daughter was diagnosed with autism, Janet made it her mission to support her in every single way. She worked tirelessly along medical professionals and immersed herself in constant research in order to provide every opportunity for her daughter to live a full life. She has made several media appearances sharing her story as a parent of a child with autism and decided to write a book about Jenny's journey to provide inspiration and hope to other families called The Autistic Author and Animator, A Mother's View of a Daughter's Triumph. You may have seen her or read her story on Global TV, Shaw TV, on radio, and in various newspaper interviews. And she can be found in numerous book signings around British Columbia, Canada, and we are so honored to have her here with us today. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Tally. So happy to be here, and thank you for asking me to come.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Can you tell us your story from the beginning before diagnosis and what the signs did you see that were cause for concerns?
Yes, Jenny's first year of life was awesome. She was developing mentally and physically where she should be. When she was about 12 months old, we went for her vaccination, and later that day, she became violently ill,
Yes.
and we almost lost her.
Oh, dear.
She ended up in the hospital for over a week. Her white blood count was right out of whack, and was very unsettling for me as the doctor couldn't tell me what and why it happened.
Wow.
So, however, the trooper that she was and is, Jenny fully physically recovered, and she was in the hospital for about a week and a half. So we were allowed to go back home and go back to life as normal.
Yes.
Or so we thought. That's when Jenny and my life, our family's life, changed forever. I noticed after that year and a half of the hospital stay that she was in that Jenny was very different. Something wasn't right. She wasn't the same girl that she was before. Jenny was a very outgoing and engaging, always said mini-me.
Yes.
But she had gone into a world of her own, and you couldn't go into it. There was no eye contact anymore. She had started a few words. The words were gone. The talking was gone. She was having very severe fits in change of routine, if a stranger walked in, fits with all her five senses, and very extreme fits with this when she react to her senses. She would grunt and push you towards things, never talk or give you eye contact with it. Food, oh my goodness. She would eat the same thing over and over and over again.
And I so can relate to that story, yes.
Yeah, so it was something where the same food for months, and to introduce something new was really hard because she didn't want to.
And that's a common story that I hear over and over again with families with autism, that food sensitivity is a major issue.
Oh yes, a lot you hear of that, and diet is a big thing. And then, and I hear this from families too, she would spin herself in circles. She loved that dizzy feeling.
Yes.
Or she'd line things up. She had these Dalmatian figurines, and either in the bathtub or in the living room, her own room, and she'd line them up. And heaven forbid, if you ever took them out of the lineup, or heaven forbid, if you tried to interact and play with her. She didn't want any part of it. She loved being in that, that world of her own. So I had actually thought that maybe it was her hearing, and maybe that's why she was frustrated or she wasn't listening. And then when I did see a pediatrician in time, she saw right away in Jenny was, the behaviors of autism.
And what you actually mentioned is really a familiar story, because
Yes.
I know that my doctor also sent my child for hearing tests as well. So it's not an uncommon thing for people to conclude that they may have a hearing
Yes, and
issue.
I think people at first don't have their children checked because they think, oh, maybe it's the terrible twos, or
Yes.
maybe it is their hearing, or just go for the hearing test. But that's when you have to go with the gut and see that something else is going on.
And I think as a mother, I think it's really important to do that, to listen to your gut.
Yes, very important.
So what was it like for you to hear the words your child has autism? What was that moment like?
Well, I'm going to be very honest and upfront with you, because when I was at first, I was in the dark with autism. I didn't know what the word was. I hadn't even heard about it at that time, because we're talking, quite a few years ago, 19, 20 years ago. So I was really, like I say, in the dark. But when I actually was introduced to it because of the behaviors, well, I would say I had already been introduced to it. I just didn't realize the behaviors that she was exhibiting was autism. Okay. However, when I did go to the specialist with her and have the assessment and everything that was explained to me, mm-hmm. I mean, like every other parent out there, I'm sure, I was devastated. It broke my heart. And I felt so sorry for Jenny, because what she was having to go through. I always compared myself. I wanted to be this mother, this fairy godmother, and I wanted to wave a magic wand over her, and I wanted her to go back to what she was like before and just have a regular 4-year-old.
And that's completely understandable, and especially in your day, because what was the difference about raising your daughter, considering it was in the 1990s? I mean, your daughter is 23 years old right now, so what was that like way back then?
Well, it's a good question that you ask, because back in the 1990s, autism wasn't as known.
No, it wasn't. That's why I'm asking.
Yes, good question. It wasn't understood as well, and it didn't per se have a label. It had not been universally accepted. I mean, we knew that she was autistic. The other people that worked with her before the specialist, they knew she had was autistic. However, to get the support that she desperately needed, I needed to have a label. So actually what they labeled her with, even the specialists, even though they knew it was autism, they went with mild mental handicapped.
Okay.
And I went that way, and I took that label on because of the support that we needed. And I always compared myself as a mother bear who wanted to provide and protect my little cub.
And I think we all need to have that mama bear instinct
Oh,
in
yes.
me as well. And you bring up a really good point as well, because I know there's a lot of parents out there who fear a diagnosis or fear a label. And what you're mentioning is really valid, and I think it's a testament to you as a mother that you're brave and strong enough to accept a label for your daughter, because you know very well that that's the only way that you're actually able to get help for your daughter. And I think that's a brilliant thing that you've done.
Yeah, no, and thank you. And that is a good point, because a lot of children do go through the cracks, because a lot of parents, they're so devastated. They're so upset
Yes.
about the diagnosis that's been given that they find it really hard to be the rock. They find it really hard to go and get the support. And I was never an assertive person, but I had to become an assertive person. That is the way that you reach your goals for your child, and you do get the support. And like I said, children can go through the cracks.
Absolutely.
And I was a mother on a mission from our child, like you say. And back then, I will say there wasn't as many support groups as
No,
there
there
is now.
wasn't.
We did not have that. So I always had to say to myself, okay, Janet, you're not being a nuisance. You're not being difficult or intrusive. I was concerned, and I wanted the best for my child, not only for her well-being at that time, but also for her future. And I've always said to people, there's still this stigma associated with autism.
Unfortunately, you're right.
Yeah, and I wrote my book to show a positive side and shine a light with it. And I feel Jenny is living proof to shine this out to others.
100%, and I couldn't agree more. Now, I know in our prior conversations to the podcast, you talked about your dream team. What do you mean by that, and what would you tell other parents to obtain one too?
Oh, wow. The dream team. This was Jenny and my saving grace. And the dream team is actually a group of professionals and non-professionals. And these are people who worked with Jenny before and after the diagnosis. When I went to go see my general practitioner, and it was really hard to make him understand that she needed to see a pediatrician. I had to fight with him and become assertive. So I did get to see a pediatrician. And she, as I said, saw right away what Jenny was exhibiting and that she needed help. Now, in saying this, I was so excited. I thought, oh my God, we've got this appointment. We're going to go down the straight and narrow and Jenny's going to go right back to where she was. When she did phone me to let me know about the appointment, it wasn't going to be until a year and a half.
Wow, that's a long waiting list.
Yes, and I think she saw my jaw drop to the floor because I said...
I think anybody's would, yes.
Yeah, I said, a year? I said, we can't wait a year. She needs help right now. So very lovingly, she reassured me that there would be help in the interim. So she had set me up with a group of appropriate support and care services. And these were our dream team. The very first one we met was Darlene Walmsley. And she was the head of Community Care Options Program in Vernon because I had to work at that time. So we needed to get a really good daycare. And what I liked what she did, when she saw everything in Jenny, she says, I want to try something here. I want to experience with something here. I want to put Jenny in, per se, a normal daycare setting and not in more of the special needs and care centers that they had. She says, because I really think it might bring Jenny out of her world and I would like to try it, which was the best thing that she ever suggested and the best thing for Jenny.
Wonderful.
So, and I always talk about Jenny when I say special needs. I always say Jenny's normal with special needs because we're all normal, but we all, have our quirks.
I personally don't even like the term normal because I don't think really truly, if you knew anybody, nobody really is.
You're so right. That's very, very well put. And it's so, so true. So then Darlene got us in touch with the Godsend group, Brer Rabbit Daycare. And Gail and Debbie were the owners. And they also had, staff providers, one of them being Shelley Burrell, who was Jenny's, I call her like her second mom. She was the special care assistant with Jenny. These people went the extra mile, and we are still best friends with them today. We also had Fran Wood. She was Jenny's play therapist and did something which I would recommend to any parent and professionals, did TheraPlay.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so that was really good. And then she also had Lisa Coley-Donahue, who was her speech and language therapist. And then after that, she also, we saw every year for so many years, Dr. Pfeiffer. And Dr. Pfeiffer was her adolescent psychiatrist. And one of the programs he suggested that Jenny did was the therapeutic horse riding program, which Jenny loved. And I was so sad to see when they had to stop it. Guess what? Due to cost cuts. So
unfortunately, that's not an uncommon scenario.
So I think everybody will know what that is. And then there were, I called them our Respite Angels. And this was under the care and head Margaret Hudson. And she gave us two lovely women, Lynn Oldfield and Lucy McInnes, who were Jenny's respite care workers. And these people... their unconditional love, their guidance, they were there 110%. They worked hard. They all became our second family, and we're still in touch with these people today. And last but not least, and I stress this, is the love and the rock of a family. That includes myself, Jenny's brother, older brother Chris, her dad Travis, and last but certainly not least, was the silent hero of our family, and that would be Jenny's dog, Mr. Sparkles.
Oh, cute.
So in saying this, when parents notice or see that something strange is going on, it doesn't feel right, don't wait to think that it'll go away or it's the terrible twos. Go get an appointment with your pediatrician and then have the specialist do an assessment. To me, personally, early intervention is the key to get them out of that world and get them to talk and socialize and be able to learn. And if you can't get in right away for a specialist, like what happened with us, make sure that you can get that support in every different avenue in the meantime. It was the best thing I ever did.
Absolutely. And I mean, you spoke about a great number of people, and I really want people out there to understand the amount of work that is entailed when you really want to create a dream team. You mentioned so many people, and so many people need to be involved in your child's life.
Yes.
And I think that you need to be a strong, organized person and be a mama bear, as you described earlier,
Yes.
to really have the dream team that's best for your child, because of the fact that the organization required in creating that doesn't come and doesn't land on your lap. It's really you going out there, which really brings me to my next question.
And just before you say that,
Yes.
this is something I wanted to say, that push for every support, be assertive. It's not wrong. Like I say, I was not an assertive person. Don't be aggressive, because there is a difference, but don't ever back down either. And this is very important. You are their rock.
Yes.
You're their voice.
True.
You're their sounding board, and you are their main support system. And I just wanted to say that I actually did, because they were part of the dream team too. I did go outside of Canada. I had watched a movie, and if it's still out there, I watched a movie called Sunrise, A Miracle
Yes.
Continues.
Absolutely.
And I got in contact with them. This was a couple who had an autistic son, and they were told actually at 2.5 years old to put him in a mental institution, and they didn't. And the work they did with them, you've seen that movie, they carried on to now the Options Institute. I do have them in my book, because I asked them if it was okay, and they said, just go for it, Janet. And they read what I wrote about them, and they really, really enjoyed it. I think when you have this dream team, you also have to be, which we did, we were in touch on a regular basis. We
Yes.
had meetings, and we would have goals set, and then we'd go through what she had gone through in that period of time from when we met from the last time. They would daily log. Plus, I did this at home as well. I think too, and I don't want to sugarcoat it, but you just said it. It is a lot of hard work.
Yes.
However, one has to be positive. You have to push down all the barriers, as your child deserves a rich, fulfilled life like any other child. And one can engulf a bright light at the end of the dark tunnel. And this dream team was a part of why Jenny is who she is today.
And I couldn't agree more. Now, you also mentioned all of this work that you've done in pushing forward and being a rock and getting your voice heard. And I couldn't agree more that being assertive doesn't mean being aggressive. And I always say to my audience that I'm a mama bear too, and I think you can earn more joy with honey than with vinegar. So to be positive and polite, but that involves advocacy. So why do you think advocacy is so important for parents to do? Even the ones that I know many of you are shy out there and
Yes.
don't feel that you have a voice, but why is it so important?
Well, advocacy brings positive support for your child's future in both society and the workforce. I mean, it's a joy to see the number of organizations out there now who want to help and
Yes.
bring forth a voice for the autistic individual and their family with this autistic individual. We have to all come together, whether it's a smaller voice, a booming voice, but we have to all come together and bond as a whole positive unit to bring about all that's needed for autistic individuals. Now, what's very important, this is not only for when they're children, but even more importantly so for when they are adults.
Very true. Now, what are your biggest worries, and what would you tell your past self if you had to do it all over again? Or what fears did you have about your daughter's future due to all the uneducated and ignorant statements that you heard others tell you? How did this affect you, and what were they?
Well, one of my biggest worries back then, and up to now, was, did I get every support that I could for Jenny? Praying that I didn't miss anything. I was worried because, is she going to come out of this world? Is she going to be back to where she was? Is she going to be able to even talk? But my biggest worry and still is a bit today, although she's come 110% from when she was a little girl, is socialization and communication with people, especially with her peers. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't be hesitant to take respite care for myself. When I was first told that I needed respite care, I kind of looked at Dr. Wader and Margaret and went, what do I need that for? I said, I felt that only I could take care of Jenny, would know how to handle her. So
I think a lot of parents out there think the same thing.
I mean, I wasn't. I had said no, but you know what? After talking to Margaret and talking to Dr. Wada, respite is the best thing for a parent to have, because if you are mentally and physically exhausted yourself, how are you going to be able to take care of your child? I mean, I was always there for Jenny 24/7, and I do it all over again. But one can burn out. And you know, when you think about it, and this was what was really good for me too, to realize not only was the respite good for me, but number one, it was good for Jenny, because it learned her how to be in a different environment. It learned her how to handle change of routine, and also to be with different people. I mean, they love Jenny now, and Jenny loves them. And like I say, we're in contact with them all the time, and they're so proud, but more so happy for where Jenny's come to. And, you know, I remember, you know, when you talk about some of the things that people say, and it's just so maddening.
Yes.
I do remember being in the pediatrician's office at the specialist assessment. And that was the one area where it was a bit of a bad aura, because we just had 2 full days of testing. You know, it was hard on Jenny, and I was getting all this information, and my mom came with us for more support, and it was a lot.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, so we go into the pediatrician's office, and I just sat down, and she starts off, okay, Jenny's not going to talk very well ever. She's not going to do well in school. She's never going to be out with her peers. She's never going to get married. She's never going to work in a bank. And she was going on and on.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So finally, I just tuned her out. And I remember
Good for you.
I remember my mom tapping me, and because she knew it was sort of upsetting. But I mean, I was very kind to this woman. I left and I said, thank you. But as I was walking through the door, I just said underneath my breath, so she couldn't hear, that's not going to happen.
Good for you.
So, you know, in turn, her being like that, it made me even more 110% plus determined to get everything I could for Jenny, to be her rock. It was my life mission, as we've spoke about.
Of course.
And seriously, a parent does not need, I mean, it's enough that you're finding out about this and having to, you know, go through the behaviors your child is presenting, but not to give any positive light, not to give any hope, and just be all doom and gloom. I mean, seriously, I always say to Jenny, my friends, I would really like to meet this woman now and go, hello, remember me and my daughter, Jenny? Look at her fly now.
Exactly. And I mean, I that frustrates me in so many areas. I was a teacher for 20 years, and I've heard other teachers tell the parents of students that their son or daughter will never do this and never do that. And I've never said that to another parent. And I don't believe doctors should actually give that doom and gloom experience either, because one, it only comes from their own perspective, and two, one never really knows, in the sense where how do you know? You don't know what latest developments will come. You don't know what will affect or inspire that student. Exactly. And so on and so forth. And I've met so many students, as you're saying, that have come back and seen those teachers and said, look at where I am now. And I love it when they do that too. And I suggest that doctors and people out there who are actually speaking with parents or anybody of children who have autism to really be careful about the words that they use, because Janet, you and I are the same. We're mama bears. But for the parents out there who don't necessarily have that same chutzpah underneath us, you know, it could destroy them. And I don't really think that's fair to do that to them.
And you know, it has, because I have seen parents whose children have gone through the crack because of things like this being said to them, and they just think that there's no hope. So I totally agree with you. Doctors and professionals really have to be careful on what they're saying to a parent, and I really think there has to be a little bit more love and kindness and giving, because I always say, never say never.
I agree.
And the reason why I'm saying this is I remember when Jenny was in grade 6, her teacher's a lovely teacher, but I remember her saying, because they were at that time doing short stories, and I remember her saying to me one day, she goes, well, Jenny's not really getting the fundamentals here, and I don't think she'll ever be able to understand the beginning, middle, and end of a story.
What a thing to say.
And now here she is, has a best-selling novel out there and is an author.
And
never say never.
And I agree. And to all those people that are giving people limits, I suggest taking a nice, strong look at your belief systems and challenging them.
Yes. And I realize there's different levels of autism, different levels of that, but you still can push forward and, not only climb that mountain peak, jump on top of the clouds.
Absolutely.
Right up there. Yeah.
No, this brings me to my next question. Out of all of your experiences, what was your biggest frustration in trying to help your daughter, in your words?
Well, I actually felt very lucky when it came to the support, that dream team. And I know a lot of people have told me that they really have not had that support, and boy, how did you do it, which I just explained. So in that regard, I felt very lucky. And even with the school system, I was very lucky with the teachers. I was there a lot. They included me in. They wanted my input. They thought I was my information, my input was a positive tool for them, being with their autistic students. So in that regard, I was very lucky, because I was just talking to a woman the other day. She's going through, pardon my French, hell. She's supposed to be getting this education assistant in the fall, still hasn't got it. So I understand that is a lot of people's frustrations. Mm-hmm. My biggest one was with the general public and how they would react and looked at my daughter when we were in public, when she displayed her autistic tendencies and fits. I remember one time this couple coming up to me, we were in the grocery store, and telling me what a bad girl Jenny was and that she should be spanked, and what kind of mother parenting was I doing. And I thought, oh my goodness, it hurt so bad. But then I thought, you don't know her. She's not a bad girl. This isn't the way she wants to act. And I'm doing everything I can in my power to help her. I said, it's neither one of our faults, and I'm not a bad parent. I feel like I'm doing everything I can for her. I mean, it broke my heart. But, I said to myself, Janet, you can't just keep Jenny locked in a bubble in the house. Your daughter needs to know what it's like to behave out in public and be out in public, and she deserves every right to be out there.
Oh, 100%.
So it was like when we went for a walk to the park, or going to the store, or being in a restaurant. And Tally, I finally stopped explaining to people when she was having it, because I knew who Jenny was about, and I knew who I was as a mom.
Absolutely. And I mean, to think of those comments being said to you, that's like asking somebody in a wheelchair that isn't able to stand and walk and get to where they need to go, for the outside public to turn around and shout at the parents of, why can't your child walk? And you're a terrible mother because of the fact that this child can't walk. And if they would only get a good smack up the side of the head, which, I mean, all of us parents have heard something challenging.
Yes.
From the outside public. So your story is such what I call an unfortunate common one that we've all had in our experience, which I would suggest all of the people out there placing judgment on parents out there to actually think, is what you're seeing actually what's there?
Exactly. You just read my mind. You and I like minds. We think like, that's exactly what I was going to say. And you hit the nail on the head.
Now, what have you learned about yourself being the parent of a child with autism?
Wow. This is a great question. I mean, like you said, I did have a son before Jenny who had no, per se, special needs. And it was a whole different perspective in parenting. And what I really learned from it, I always thought I was patient. But boy, I learned more about patience from Jenny. What unconditional love really is, what it really is. I learned about unconditional love from Jenny and from the people that worked with her. And I think, and I've talked about this before, but I stress this, I was never assertive. And in learning to be assertive, not only in being there for my daughter and my family, but also personally, how in my own life, in my own personal way, how it helped me in a lot of scenarios in my personal life.
Which sounds wonderful. And I mean, you're very assertive and very personable and all of that, that all sounds wonderful and great. So autism really has been a positive influence on you.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's been, people go, oh, poor you've got a girl with autism. But you know what? She's made my life fuller, richer, and beautiful.
And I believe the exact same thing. And I think you said that quite eloquently. Now, what would you like to tell other parents who have a child with autism? What do you hope for others in society to know about being on the spectrum?
Well, those are two good questions because number one, and I've talked about it before, but I always come back to certain things again because they are relevant and they're very important to repeat.
Yes.
Early intervention is key.
Yes.
To keep a positive mindset and to believe that dreams come true, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel with a rainbow of colors and a pot of gold for your child and for yourselves as a family. Never give up, even though you feel like you're banging your head against the wall. You are your child's voice and advocate. And I, at this time, just wanted to say, I wrote my book not to tell people what to do. What I did is I wrote it to enlighten them of what our life was like on Jenny's road and journey with autism. And I think to others, I just want to show that these people can function. These people can be such a huge asset in our society. And with Jenny, with living proof, the light that she shines, the hope that she shines for people's present and future. I mean, you look at her now, just turned 23 last month. And to think she was at 3 years old, a very low functioning autistic child. Mm-hmm. And she's now a professional 2D and 3D digital character animator. And she's wrote her book, The First of a Trillion. It's a bestseller. I mean, what more evidence or proof do you need?
100%. And I think it's wonderful that you did decide to write a book because I think that more positive stories really do need to be told to other parents who are maybe just getting the diagnosis to start off with. Because unfortunately, the negative talk is given to parents by, like you said, doctors and other psychologists and whatnot that might not have an educated viewpoint. And I think books like yours really set a new tone for listening ears out there that people might not be aware of autism and so on. And I also don't think that it's only for the parents of children with autism or who have autism in their family. I really believe strongly that books like yours really should be read by the massed media to educate everyone in society, because I think if there's more education in society and more people are aware of all the aspects of what you mentioned in your book, then the ignorant comments that came with you in the past, I really wouldn't happen. Because people would really be more aware.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I wrote the book. That's exactly what you just said. So I won't repeat because that's exactly why I did write it. Because you can even have some autistic families looking at you going, oh, you're looking through rose-colored glasses, grow up. And I did have a woman say that to me, and I go, well, my rose-colored glasses are a positive one. And I just want to enlighten and give hope to people that working hard, getting a dream team involved, and number one, Jenny worked hard too to get, where she is today.
Absolutely.
It's again, you can never say never. You have to think positive, even with the hell that you can go through, the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations. You just have to stay strong, take the bulls by the horn. What do they say? When the going gets tough, the tough gets going. So you just have to do that. Go through those trenches of mud.
Absolutely, and they're so worth it. We hope you've enjoyed the first part of this podcast, and don't forget to join us tomorrow for the finale of our 2-part special feature for Autism Awareness Month.
Hey yo, I'm an autism awareness angel, making sure my wings